Good evening. Welcome to Kenya News Update today. I'm your host, and we're coming to you live on March 8th, 2026. Tonight, we're taking a global deep dive into the exhibitions and events marking International Women's Day 2026. This isn't just a celebration, it's a worldwide movement, a moment of reflection, and a powerful engine for change. Over the next 12 minutes, we'll explore how this day, first marked by over 1 million people in 1911, has evolved into a massive global phenomenon in 2026. We'll look at the art, the policy discussions, the economic data, and the stark challenges that remain. We'll present multiple perspectives, from cultural curators to political leaders, and examine the tangible impact of this global observance. Let's begin. Our first stop is the cultural front. This year, major institutions worldwide have launched ambitious exhibitions. In London, the Tate Modern has opened Unseen Forces, a retrospective of 12 pioneering female sculptors from the 20th century. The exhibition, with a budget of £2.5 million, features over 120 works, half of which have never been publicly displayed. Meanwhile, at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, the digital installation, Her Code, is drawing crowds of 15,000 visitors daily. It uses AI to visualize the contributions of women in STEM fields, highlighting that while women make up 52% of the global population, they represent only 28% of the workforce in science, technology, engineering, and math. Across Europe, the focus is on intersectionality. In Berlin, a month-long film festival titled Multiple Truths is showcasing 80 films from 40 countries, all directed by women of color. The festival director, Annika Schmidt, stated in her opening address, "Our goal is not just representation, but a recalibration of the narrative power structure." The festival has secured corporate sponsorship totaling €4.7 million, a 35% increase from last year. In Paris, the Louvre has dedicated an entire wing to the female gaze in Renaissance art, challenging centuries of male-dominated art history. Early attendance figures show a 60-40 split, with 60% of visitors being women. Now, let's shift to the economic and policy dimensions of today's events. In Nairobi, President William Ruto presided over the launch of the Women's Economic Acceleration Fund, a 500 billion shilling initiative. The fund aims to provide low-interest loans and grants to women-led enterprises over the next 5 years. During the launch at the Kenyatta International Convention Center, which was attended by 1,200 delegates, President Ruto stated, "Investing in women is not a social welfare program. It is the single most strategic economic decision a nation can make for sustainable growth." The government projects this fund will create 2.5 million new jobs for women by 2030. In Washington, D.C., the atmosphere is notably different. The Trump administration marked the day with a closed-door policy briefing titled Women, Security, and National Prosperity. While no new federal funding was announced, the White House released a statement highlighting that female unemployment in the U.S. has fallen to 3.8%, its lowest point in 5 decades. However, critics were quick to point out the persistent gender pay gap. Data shows that on average, American women earn 82 cents for every dollar earned by a man. For Black and Hispanic women, that figure drops to 63 and 55 cents, respectively. This disparity translates to a collective annual loss of approximately $1.6 trillion in wages. Let's visualize that critical economic disparity. The gender pay gap remains one of the most persistent economic injustices globally. In the United States, the average is 82 cents on the dollar. But this average masks significant racial disparities. For Black women, it's 63 cents. For Hispanic women, it's just 55 cents. This isn't just about fairness, it's about a massive drain on the economy, totaling over $1.6 trillion in lost wages annually. This data point underscores why policy-focused events today are pushing so hard for pay transparency laws and equitable hiring practices. Back on the cultural scene, let's examine the numbers behind the art market, another area of historic imbalance. A major talking point at the Art Basel Hong Kong satellite events is the market valuation of work by female artists. While visibility is increasing, the financial gap is staggering. According to a 2026 report by Art Market Research, at major auction houses, works by women account for only 2% of total sales by value. However, that figure is growing. In 2025, total auction sales for art by women reached $900 million, a 15% year-on-year increase. Exhibitions like Reclaiming Space in Tokyo are directly confronting this by only featuring artists whose work has been historically undervalued, with pieces priced from $50,000 to $5 million. In the corporate world, International Women's Day has become a major branding and CSR event. Our analysis shows that the top 100 global corporations will spend an estimated $2.1 billion on related campaigns, events, and internal initiatives today. This includes everything from panel discussions to matching employee donations to women's charities. However, this corporate embrace is met with skepticism by some activists. Dr. Lena Chen, a sociologist at the University of Melbourne, argues there's a dangerous line between solidarity and spectacle. We must scrutinize whether a company's glossy IWD campaign aligns with its internal policies on parental leave, harassment, and promotion equity. Her research indicates that only 35% of companies that run major IWD campaigns have a female CEO. Let's look at that corporate accountability metric. Of the 100 global corporations spending billions on International Women's Day campaigns, how many are led by women? The number is surprisingly low. Only 35. That's just 35%. This disconnect between external messaging and internal reality is a key point of debate today. Are these campaigns meaningful drivers of change, or merely performative activism? This question is being debated in boardrooms and on social media platforms worldwide, with the hashtag #BeyondTheLogo generating over 5 million posts today alone. Now, to the global political stage. At the United Nations headquarters in New York, Secretary General Antonio Guterres opened the annual Commission on the Status of Women meetings, which this year focus on technology and innovation for gender equality. The UN released a sobering report ahead of the session. It states that at the current pace of change, closing the global gender gap in economic participation and political empowerment will take another 135 years. The report highlights that women hold only 26% of parliamentary seats worldwide and just 22% of ministerial positions. In response, 12 nations, including Canada, Germany, and Rwanda, announced new pledges totaling $600 million to fund digital literacy and STEM education for girls in developing nations. Rwanda, in particular, stands out as a benchmark. It leads the world in female parliamentary representation, with women holding 61% of seats in the Chamber of Deputies. President Paul Kagame, speaking at a virtual summit, attributed this to conscious, deliberate policy choices made over decades. Contrast this with regions like the Middle East and North Africa, where the average female parliamentary representation sits at 17%. This disparity shows that while global norms are shifting, local implementation varies dramatically based on political will and cultural context. Let's visualize that global leadership gap. The representation of women in national parliaments is a key indicator of political gender equality. The global average is just 26%, but look at the range. At the top, Rwanda shines with 61% female representation. At the other end of the spectrum, several nations still have parliaments that are less than 10% women. This isn't just about numbers, it's about whose voices are heard in crafting laws that affect everyone. The data makes it clear systemic, quota-based policies, as seen in Rwanda, can dramatically accelerate change where political will exists. On the ground, the day is also marked by protests and demands for urgent action. In Mexico City, an estimated 120,000 people marched under the banner, "Ni una más," not one more, calling for an end to femicide. Official data shows that in Mexico, an average of 10 women are murdered every day because of their gender. In Seoul, South Korea, thousands gathered to demand the criminalization of digital sex crimes and, deeper, reforms to the country's notoriously patriarchal corporate culture. These marches, while somber, are integral to the day's meaning, reminding the world that celebration cannot eclipse the ongoing struggle for basic safety and justice. From a business perspective, the gender lens investing movement is gaining remarkable traction today. Major financial institutions like BlackRock and Goldman Sachs have announced new ESG funds specifically targeting companies with strong gender diversity on boards and in leadership. Analysis suggests that by the end of 2026, assets under management in such funds will exceed $150 billion, a 50% increase from 2025. The rationale is increasingly data-driven. A study by McKinsey & Company found that companies in the top quartile for gender diversity on executive teams were 25% more likely to have above-average profitability than companies in the bottom quartile. Let's break down that profitability argument. The business case for gender diversity is now backed by hard numbers. top performing companies in terms of gender diversity are 25% more likely to outperform their less diverse peers on profitability. This compelling statistic is why Wall Street is paying attention. It's shifting the conversation from a moral imperative to a financial one. As a result, we're seeing a surge in gender lens investing, with projected assets under management set to hit $150 billion by year's end. This represents a powerful market-driven force for change. As we look towards the future, the role of technology is paramount. Many of today's events focus on bridging the digital divide. In rural India, a nonprofit is launching a program to distribute 50,000 tablets loaded with educational content to girls in underserved communities. In Silicon Valley, a coalition of tech giants pledged to double the number of women in technical roles within 5 years, a move that would require hiring and retaining approximately 120,000 new female engineers. The challenge is immense, but the commitments made today are more specific and measurable than ever before. However, significant philosophical debates underpin these actions. Some feminist scholars argue that the corporatization and globalization of International Women's Day have diluted its radical, grassroots origins. They ask, is the goal to get more women into existing power structures or to fundamentally transform those structures? This tension is visible in the contrast between the gala dinners in financial districts and the grassroots marches in city squares. Both are part of the day's ecosystem, but they often champion different strategies for achieving equality. To conclude our deep dive, let's reflect on the sheer scale and complexity of March 8th, 2026. It is a day of art that challenges history, of economic pledges in the billions, of painful protests against violence, and of corporate branding campaigns. The data we've seen, from the 2% auction share to the 135-year economic gap, from the 61% parliamentary representation in Rwanda to the 25% profitability premium, paints a picture of a world in flux. Progress is undeniable but uneven. Celebration is warranted, but vigilance is required. The true measure of today's events will be seen in the policies enacted, the investments realized, and the cultural shifts sustained in the 364 days that follow. For Kenya News Update today, this has been a special extended report. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to Kenya News Update today for more in-depth coverage.